So our friend Leslie did this mid-year Freakout tag here recently, and I see it going around YouTube every year. This is my third year here approaching on BookTube, and we've never once done this. It's a strange thing is we've kind of built our channel around two people, so it's kind of hard to do certain things. And one of those is this tag, because if you look at our channel, while we've had, 2, 3 short stories a week, ooh, squirrel less than a foot away, we don't have as many books. Like it just a lot just depends on our schedules. Crypto's been very busy. If you look at our channel, we're at 2 books this year. Now with that said, there's probably gonna be like 12 hours of content. Like one of them had 5 videos. The War and Peace video that we're working on right now is about 4.5 hours. Not exactly short on words, but short on the number of books. And if you look at what I've read this year, I'm actually up to, so excluding like short stories and all that stuff, I'm at 11 just independent of that books. So reading a decent amount, I mean, that's good for me as a slow reader, but you guys don't see those 11 other books or hear feedback on them. 2 of them are history books. Not really a history channel, so I'm not gonna review those. One of them's actually like a manga box set, so it's probably like 20 different little manga things. So just various things like that we just don't record. So these are good tags to do, I think, to kind of just talk about those in general. So I thought this tag looked cool and thought we could just do it and have a little walk and talk. And the first question was, what is the best book of 2022 for you? And for me, that's a no-brainer. I've read some killer books this year. Like, no joke, slamming. You'll see as we go through them. But PEDRO, PARAMO, my buddy read with Noah that we seem to be doing. I don't know, are we planning on doing a January read every year, Noah? But man, you killed it this year with that selection, because PEDRO, PARAMO is just next level. I mean, it's regarded as Mexico's greatest novel, so I should have, probably planned for that. But you never know what's going to resonate with you. You know what I mean? Like, I read an American novel, I know a decent amount of American history. I can understand that. But when you go to translated fiction, you're getting a lot of new spices. Sometimes you have to learn some things. But PEDRO, PARAMO, that was laid out like just a work of art. You could start anywhere you want. It's like you're reading poetry and you know where you are. It's a great world to jump into. In terms of best sequel, I've actually only read 1 sequel this year, and that's Dark Tower Book 7. Why don't you have a video on that? You've got a video on every other Dark Tower book. Well, we're waiting on Crypto to read it, so bug him to keep going. But finally finished my ride to the tower. I'm gonna reserve my thoughts for the video, but definitely worth the hike, I thought. Definitely worth the 4,000 pages with some warnings, depending on who you are. So we'll get to those. I don't know if you guys were looking for like a before Dark Tower. We do our befores much different than like a Daniel Green. I saw had one out there, and there's some other booktubers that have great content. It's just not how we approach our befores. I just don't know if it would be needed for a fantasy book. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think you would want to see. Now, book 3 is a new book that you can't wait to get to that came out, I think it's supposed to be this year. That would be MIEKO KAWAKAMI's All the Lovers of the Night. And that Kawakami needs no introduction to me. I want to have a video on like every book that she's had. I do. I just love her writing. She's probably maybe top 5 authors. I don't know. I'm really bad at these lists and honestly bad at doing tags, so don't ever listen to me. But that, if it's written by Kawakami, I'm gonna read it. Now, most anticipated book for the second half of the year, gosh, that's hard. I don't really have a lot of pre-orders. Had a couple for the beginning of the year, about 2 or 3, which is good for me. I read a combination of newer and older, but more older, I think is kind of obvious. But I'm looking forward to the manga box set, the My Hero Academia. They publish a whole bunch and then they'll release them in a box set. And I like those because the paper quality is kind of crap on a lot of manga and comics in general. You gotta protect them. You got some people have like, special shelves or sleeves to put them in. I like getting the manga in the box sets because it's a built-in sleeve and carrying case that it just helps protect books that are a little bit lower quality in terms of print. Now, as for biggest disappointment of 2022, disappointment's a strong word. But in terms of furthest out on that scale, I'm gonna have to go with War and Peace. I had certain expectations. It did not meet those. And I don't think it's technically wrong, like a lot of my disagreements. Like, yeah, I don't agree with everything he says. He's got some great points. Honestly, more great points than not. So I don't want it to come off as negative, but I disagree with a few of those, but that's not why it's a disappointment. I just didn't honestly enjoy reading a ton of the work. Some of it was kind of boring, and some of it felt redundant, and just didn't necessarily work. Now, for biggest surprise of the year, I'm gonna have to go with Pale Fire by Nabokov. Read Lolita before, and I was young, so that's a book I just don't think I can return to as an adult and an older person. I'm also learning that I'm not very good with transgressive literature, but this one was next level, the way that you're just in from the fake introduction to the fake glossary, the meta hyperfiction. Oh, awesome book. Really shocked me in the sense that it brought literature to a place I didn't know can go, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't know you could go to that level of just meta-ness, and it just blew my mind. Great read. Favorite new author, HILDA HILST. Anyone that I read from Brazil or even just a lot of Latin American countries just knocks my socks off. I don't know if it's just their life experience is so different. I don't know if their writing style is so different. Obviously, they're kind of going through the Japan game in a sense, where a lot of their literature from imperial colonial days is burned and lost, that they're making up for it. It's killer stuff. So we read The Obscene Madame D again with my boy Noah, and had a great time with that one. That I was trying to read another book of hers with Leslie here later this year. We'll see if that actually ends up happening. But she is a killer author that just really enters the mind in not even afraid to go to like the perverted areas of our minds that we hide and keep hidden away. She brings it out in a way that is can be discussed and understood. I think even if it's very personal, I think she kind of pulls that off. In terms of crush, I don't get a lot of crushes. I guess the character that I kind of thought was interesting the most, and maybe because it was a romance book, is Laurie from The Apprenticeship from Clarice Lispector. I just thought Laurie was really interesting, and some of the things that she said, like, these are sentences I would construct, like straight up, like that's me. So I think when you see a character you can relate to, you know, and she just so happens to be female. I mean, it's a book character. I don't really get crushes per se, but that's probably the closest that one gets is Laurie. Now the next one I can relate more to, which is this new favorite character, and I get favorite characters all the time. You know, loyal followers of this channel, you guys know that I love. It's not that I like villains. I like the characters that make it interesting, the ones that spice it up. And yes, that sometimes comes from doing evil decisions and bad things, but my lord, going back to Pale Fire, we're going to talk about KINBOTE, because holy crap, the way he lies to himself through the whole book, like that dude is just off his rocker. And the way he reinterprets this you know, author's life, John Shade, next level. The way that, like, it's just like, you as a reader even know, you're like, dude, that's too far. That's totally not what he meant. And he just spices the novel up to this level of just ridiculousness that, man, Pale Fire was a great read. Question 10, in terms of books that make you cry, I don't really cry that often. Maybe sad, like, kind of like that adorable sadness tear is the closest I get. Like, I got that kind of with Xin Chao, but I don't think that's what it meant by crying. The closest maybe to crying I would be Bloodlands, which is one of the history books on the history of Eastern Europe. We know a lot about Western Europe, and I regret to admit that a lot of my Western Europe knowledge, you know, in terms of World War II and such, neglects the Eastern stuff. So, you know, sometimes it comes down to recognizing your gaps and recognizing your faults. So I specifically sought a book about that, and this was sad. You know, it covered from the Holodomor years with Stalin all the way up through a lot of the camps with the National Socialistic Movement with Germany, up through the gulags and a little bit of post-year. So very, very sad book, and man, talking about cannibalism and stuff like that with people being so hungry, it's very impactful. Very impactful. I don't know if I could say that I recommend that, but if you're like, hey, what's a good Eastern European book? You shouldn't be asking me anyway, because like I said, my knowledge was short. But I felt a good introduction from that for that era. It was nice. I don't totally agree with the author's conclusion, but it was good reading. Now, in terms of books that made me happy, gosh, I think a lot of books make me happy. You know what I mean? Like, this is a tough question to answer because, like, that most surprising favorite book, like, I don't know, it feels like that can kind of fit that. So if I pick a new book from that, let's go with Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. That is definitely, sometimes you just want to feel heard. Sometimes you're like, wow, I'm different and strange, and you feel bad about it. This is a book that, you know, you go through someone that most people would consider strange or different, and normalizes it. You know, it's sometimes okay to be different, and I think this is one of those books that talks about why it's a different look at why people are the same in society. So a lot of these books, you're like, well, where's your review on it? I got a quick spoiler-free review on all of these, like women in translation books. We're doing a special August run, where this August I'll have probably like 8 women in translation spoiler-free talks. So looking forward to releasing those, because great reads, great reads. In terms of book that's most beautiful, Noah, third reference this video, what's going on? He posted this picture of the Ulysses Centennial, and I'm like, yep, that's happening. 10 seconds later, had it purchased in my cart. It's just gorgeous. When you look at this video, it feels like a 5-pound book, and then it also has like these like illustrations. Probably not the most convenient to read. It's just, it's a collector's piece and gorgeous, and yeah, now I gotta actually read it. In terms of what books am I looking forward to read by the end of the year? I mean, do I list the 13 books I plan on reading the rest of the year? I don't know. I guess I'll tell you a surprise one. How about that? I'm really looking forward to this one, the Death Note short stories. I read a lot of the short story like novelizations out of some of the mangas that I really like. Like I've read 3 of the Tokyo Ghoul short story collections, but they're novelizations and such. This is short stories in comic format, interestingly. So it's not even prose. It's traditional artist, illustrator, panels, visuals, all that stuff. So I think the closest I can name is maybe like Manga Daio, or, you know, like those like 4-panel ways of telling a story, slice of life type stuff. I don't know if I've ever had a short story collection for manga, so that'll be a first for me. So I'm actually not only excited just to return to the Death Note world because I love it, but I just think it's an interesting format that I don't experience very often. So, and you know, for those of you that are still listening, I just want to say, and even for those that aren't, that have left, I can't reach you anymore, but there was a recent live stream where Steve Donahue talked about one of his big YouTuber friends that said, you know, you only get 300 views? Why even bother with BookTube? And Steve's response, quite accurate, was, you just don't get it, do you? Each one of those people out there is a person who genuinely cares or is genuinely interested, maybe looking for book recommendations, maybe just kind of like every now and then checking in with a friend, you know? So I'll just say for all you guys out there that spend time listening, whether it's for book recommendations, just to check in, appreciate it, you know? We're all real people out here, so it's great to know that we can all connect over such an awesome hobby and do things like inspire each other to go film a quick video while walking in the woods. Peace out, guys.